Hello everybody, this is Kirby over yonder, and typically Gumball is a funny, interesting, smart, and very creative cartoon. However, every so often, a Gumball episode will come out and it'll be either frustrating, or boring, or annoying, or just flat out uncomfortable to sit through. Thankfully, these episodes of Gumball are not the norm, and only pop up every so often. But just for funsies, let's take a look at the absolute worst of Gumball. Also, I've decided to discount Season 1, since it would probably take up a majority of the list. Plus, it's kinda easy to take shots at Season 1, since the creators were still figuring out what they wanted the show to be, and I find it much more interesting to talk about the later seasons. Also, keep in mind that I love Gumball, and I only criticize it because I hold it to a very high standard and want to see the show improve. So I'm not making this video because I just really want to rip into Gumball. So with that said, here's the list. Number 5. The Boombots. Hey kids, would you like to watch 11 minutes of Gumball and Darwin bickering? What's that? You wouldn't? Well, I don't blame you. Okay, well there's a bit more to it than that. It's basically about Gumball and Darwin trying to help their Boombots friend celebrate his family traditions. But all this really amounts to is just Gumball and Darwin arguing about it. It's about as fun as watching a bickering married couple. And it's a shame because there are some good jokes in this episode. Like, I love the scene where Gumball and Darwin think their teacher has retired, so they run around screaming. That's kind of the problem with doing a worst Gumball list. The episodes will often have aspects about them that I dislike, but they'll be redeemed by some really good joke. It's a shame these good jokes had to be ruined by Gumball and Darwin bickering. Number 4. The Burden. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin have to take care of their school's pet, who accidentally gets replaced with a ball of their principal's hair. This episode is just really gross. We constantly look at weird, uncomfortable close-ups of the principal's hair, as Gumball and Darwin play with it. Then we get to see the actual school pet, who is also really disgusting. I don't get why this episode is so obsessed with grossing out its audience. It's not clever or funny, it's just random gross stuff for the sake of having random gross stuff. I mean, the story itself is alright, but this episode made me feel more uncomfortable than any other episode of Gumball. Number 3. The World. In this episode, we basically just watch the lives of random objects in Elmore. I know, sounds really interesting, doesn't it? I mean, the episode isn't insultingly bad or anything, it's just really boring. I really don't care about the lives of these random objects in Elmore. I'd much rather watch the misadventures of Gumball and Darwin. There are a few decent skits in there, but the vast majority of them are just really dull. And that's the problem with the episode. It's dull. It's not even that interesting to talk about like any of the other episodes on this list. It's just so meh. Number 2. The Diet. Gumball and Darwin notice Richard's bad eating habits, so they make him start exercising, only for Richard to become a pretentious jerk. Richard is just so irritating to watch in this episode. Constantly showing off his muscles, taking selfies, disrupting the people in Elmore, causing problems, acting like he's better than everyone else. I mean, is this how the show thinks that people with muscles act? I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that do act like this, but I can guarantee that most muscular people are a lot more humble than this. The episode isn't over the top enough to be funny, yet isn't down to earth enough to feel realistic. Personally, I found this episode to be very frustrating to sit through. Before we get to number 1, here are a few honorable and dishonorable mentions. The Fridge. I see why people dislike this one, since Nicole does go a bit over the top. However, I feel like Nicole could have been done a lot worse in this episode, and I like the ending, so I gave it a skip. The Hero. I actually really like this one. I thought it was funny, heartwarming, and kind of epic. I actually did a review of this one, so if you want to see my further thoughts on it, then you may want to watch that. The Triangle. I really disliked this episode. However, I talked about it in worst episodes of good cartoons, so if you want to see my thoughts on it, then just watch that video. But basically, I just found Gumball to be really frustrating in this one, and I just hate the ending. The Girlfriend. I know a lot of people really dislike the episode because of its message, essentially saying that if you're in a toxic relationship, then just don't say anything. However, I feel like the episode's message was actually not to do that. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it honestly felt like the episode wanted us to side with Gumball. The Worst. I do agree that this episode does feel kind of bitter. However, it did have some pretty good jokes, and a couple of the points that it came up with were okay. Not all of them, but some of them. So I gave this one a skip. Number 1, The Cycle. Oh, this episode was really frustrating to sit through. In fact, I'd even say I almost hate it as much as The Triangle. We pretty much watched 11 minutes of Mr. Wilson harassing and bullying Richard for no real reason. Did Richard actually do anything to Mr. Wilson? No, he's just a one-dimensional jerk for the sake of being a one-dimensional jerk. There's nothing fun about watching an innocent character constantly being beat down by a frustrating jerk. And the sad part is, this type of mean-spirited comedy can be done well. For example, Dan Vs. works because it goes so over the top with its mean-spiritedness that the audience manages to have fun while watching it. But in this episode, Mr. Wilson isn't over the top at all. He just comes across as a petty jerk who likes to see others suffer. And we know that the writers of Gumball can be smarter than that, because they've proven it to us time and time again. Like I said in the beginning, at its best, Gumball can be funny, smart, and very creative. And these out-of-character episodes only pop up every once in a while. And personally, I'm excited to revisit some of the best episodes Gumball has to offer, because I honestly consider it one of my favorite shows. Are there any bad or mediocre Gumball episodes that you think I missed? Please let me know in the comments, and have yourselves a good one. Kirby, out.